Welcome back, everybody. Well, this is not really a how-to video. This is more of a how Darren does it video. Well, as you can see, I've got my roadbed down, and I've already went ahead and I sanded everything. I sanded the top, and basically I just take my sanding sponge. I'll go back and forth a couple times, and then I'll run my hand over it just to make sure there's no imperfections or anything like that. And then, as for the sides, when you rip this stuff apart, or pull it apart I should say, one end always kind of is, you know, got more of the cork left to it, so you just want to kind of get them angles right, so when you come back and start ballasting. And then you probably see that little imperfection right there, and that's nothing to worry about. That'll be all hidden eventually with ballast. So normally at this point, what I would do is I'll take my shop vac and I would clean it, but my shop vac decided to take a permanent vacation. So until my new one comes in, I've just got a little brush here. And you mainly just want to make sure this is really clear of debris, so when you start to lay your track, especially your turnouts, you have no bumps, nothing like that in it. So I'm happy with that. Hopefully you guys can get a good view of that. And I'll pick up the tripod here a minute, kind of show you what I've done. And it goes down through that way over there. So I'll reposition the camera and we'll get right back to it. Alright, so what I do now is, this is going to be the first turnout. And I always start, for me, I've always start with the first turnout. And that's just so I can kind of get an understanding how everything else is going to lay after this point. So what I've already done, which I went ahead and did, I drilled my hole, because all of these switches will have the tortoise switch machines hooked up to them. And everything is aligned. And usually what I'll do is I'll put a mark on both sides of the switch. And then I'll usually use the center line of the cork roadbed as a guide to where I want my hole. Now, one thing I've learned is when you're drilling into the cork, take your time. Make sure your drill is level. And just take your time, slowly work it in there, because what happens is it'll get on the cork and then it'll kind of want to walk. And before you know it, your hole will be over here when it was supposed to be over here. So that's something I've learned as I've gone. So I'll get that ready like that. And then I've always used Elmer's since I've moved out into this train room. I used to use liquid nail. I've used adhesive tape, which works good, but after time it starts to lose its stickiness and you get flexibility. But it is another good option. But I find that the Elmer's glue works great. I've used it out here in the shed for however long I've been out here with the other layout, and never had a problem with it. So normally what I'll do is I'll just glue from where the switch moves, well, doesn't move I should say, so from this point here all the way back, and I'll put a little bit here. As you can see, I don't have the roadbed in yet for this this part of the switch, but that'll come later. And then so I'll just kind of get an idea, so I know exactly where I need to be. And I could probably skip this part for you guys. And then I like the finger method. No side jokes, please. And that's all I really do. And I just make sure that I don't get it where the movement of the switch is. And I line everything back up. I make sure my hole is centered. And then I test moving the switch to make sure everything's good. So that's pretty much it on the switch aspect of things. And for me, I think it's fairly simple. It goes pretty quickly. And then I kind of stand back and I look at it and I make sure the placement of the switch is where I want it. And it's close. I'm going to move it over just a bit this way. And now we'll go with that. Alright, we'll pick back up here in a second. Alright, so I went ahead and got my glue down. And usually what I'll do with the glue is I'll let it set up a little bit. And it just seems, for me, it seems to work better that way. So this here is a 28-inch radius. And before, what I used to do the center line and all of that. But I went and got me these little templates through Fast Track. And the good thing about these is they sit right down in the track itself. So this is the 28 radius version. Then basically you can get them in any radius you want. So that's what I do. So everything's prepped, and what I'll do is I'll line this up, turn it the way it needs to go, push it home. And what I've done here is I took 2 sections of flex track, and I've got them exactly how I want. I've got them soldered up and everything. Now, for the majority of the layout, I will only solder the curves. And that's because with the expanding and contracting out here, I always leave room for the rails to move a little bit. And when I was in the other side of the shed, I never had issues with the derailments or anything like that because I allowed the tracks to move, or the rails to move, I should say. And it worked out great. So that's how I'm going to continue doing it. I haven't had any issues whatsoever. And, you know, why change something if you're not having issues with it? So what I'll do is I'll let this get a little more tacky, and then I'll come in and start putting my push pins in. I usually go crazy with these things, but grab the tripod here real quick, do some adjustments, and I'll kind of explain to you guys what else I do. Let's see here. It's going to get a little shaky real quick, guys. I apologize, and gals. Alright. Well, so as you can see there, I've got the first turnout in. And this is going to lead over to the back there where those light bulbs are. And that's going to be a little gas facility. So that's going to be the track for that. And then this turnout will pick up the siding here. And that will eventually connect to right there. And then it'll go all the way down. Now that we moved a little further, and as you can see, I've got that section of flex track in there for the curve. And I went ahead and connected the 2 turnouts. So it goes from there and there. Now this piece of track is glued down, but I will not solder the joints for the rail joiners. I'll leave them loose. I will run feeder wires. Actually, I'll run feeder wires here. And then probably here, front of the turnout, and then I'll jump back over here. Now, the only parts on this railroad that will be soldered are all the curves, and I just don't want the track moving there. But the reason I don't solder these is because I want the rails to be able to move. If the wood is expanding or contracting, I want that to be able to flex with it. I don't want to come in where everything's bowed out this way or anything like that. Done this in the past. It's worked great. I've had no issues, and that's how I'm going to keep doing it. So that's something to think about, especially for you guys that are out in a shed or in a cooler basement. You know, you don't have to solder your rail joiners on straight track as long as you have feeders. Never had an issue. Some people probably won't agree with it, but for me it works the best. And let me tell you, if you don't have a climate controlled area 24/7, you will have expansion and contracting going on, and before you know it, you'll come in and your track will be popped up, and it'll just be a nightmare. So take the steps now to allow the rails to move, and you'll be better off. So that goes there, and as you can see, the little white spots, this section here is still drying a little bit, but it is solid. It's not going anywhere. It's just where the glue was a little heavier. And as I said, I did solder that section of flex track. Now when I get down here to this section, it will not be soldered, but I will have a feeder wires going down. And what I usually do for my feeder wires is I'll drill down, and then I'll take my right-angled needle nose pliers and stick the wire up underneath the rail, and then I will solder it from that. And I've done that for a while. I used to run the wires up and then solder them to the side of the rails. I didn't really like that. I mean, you can hide it with ballast, but I find that it works just as easy if you put it underneath there. You just got to take the couple extra steps to get it right and get everything ready to go. And usually what I'll do is I'll put my solder right on the wire, and I'll crimp it to make it flat, stick it up underneath there, touch the corner of the wire, and before you know it, it warms up and it sticks right to the track, and it works wonderful. Then that way everything is hidden. And when I start doing my wiring, I'll show you how I do that exactly. Now, one thing I want to point out, there's a lot of space between the rails here. This was a older piece of flex track I had, and then this was a newer piece of flex track. Not a big deal. Usually I do not run it like that, but for whatever reason, I don't know if it had gotten broke or what, but the piece was missing, so I just grabbed one of my spare pieces, and I will put that in there like that here in a little while. But usually I'll take 3 or 4 ties out, and then that's it, or actually 3, I think it is, and it works perfect. But for whatever reason, I don't know, maybe when I pulled it up off the last layout, it maybe pulled some rails with it, and that's one of the reasons why I switched over to the Elmer's glue. It's because it's easier on your rails and your ties, and it does the job. It does just as good as anything else that I've used to this point. So I went ahead and laid all this track. Oh, well, look at that. We have a locomotive with coal cars. So I laid all that track, and that track is all down up to that point. And I've actually started the prep work going around to there, just getting everything smooth, sanded, ready to go so I can start laying my road bed, and we'll go from there. So let's take this bad boy for a run. Now, I have not ran this yet, believe it or not. This will be the very first run. Now, this is older track, except this piece right here. This is the brand new, but this is all older track. It hasn't been cleaned yet. I've rubbed my hands over it as I'm doing everything I like to do. Just checking, making sure there's no imperfections, and mainly little raises in the track, or in the rail, I should say, and there's not. So it should run good. So let's see what she does. And this will be a test too, because this is an Athens locomotive here. Let's see. Alrighty. Let's get right to it. Oh, look at that. And we're reversing. That is the wrong direction. I absolutely love this locomotive. It's been weathered. I may add a little bit more weathering to it, but as of right now, I'm happy with the way it turned out. As you can see, I just added some dust and grime, kind of all over. Now, let's see how it does around the curve here. And this is at step 4. And this is one locomotive going up a 2% grade. And it's close. I mean, when I say a 2% grade, it's like at 199, maybe 201. It's close. Slow it down a little bit. See how it's going to pull. And it's going to pull fine. I mean, I have no abrupt inclines or anything, so I don't foresee any problems. I'll probably be able to add another 20-30 cars to one locomotive, and it'll be able to pull it up great. Alright, let's step it up just a little bit for the sake of the video. And that's pretty much it. I mean, track work as long as you take your time. There's really no right or wrong way to do it. Whatever works for you. That's the biggest thing. Whatever you're comfortable with doing. And you know what? Try different ways. Try different glues, adhesive, some of the vinyl double-sided tape out there they have. That works great. Like I said earlier, it really depends on what you want and what you're comfortable with. Picking up a little speed here. I tell you, I cannot wait to run trains full length of this layout. And I'm really actually, one thing I wanted to point out, for those of you that are thinking about doing, oh, I'm trying to turn everything off here. It's not working. One of the things I wanted to point out, I really thought with having the second level that I was going to have view restraints and just felt like it was going to be closed off. I must say, just running this one train, it's worked out, and I think, you know, if you have a layout that you're thinking about doing a double decker style, do it. I mean, this is right here, to the bottom is 13 inches. So to the bottom here is 13 inches from the sub road bed there. So do it. I mean, do what's going to make you happy. I'm glad I went this route, and this is, for those of you that are just joining us, this is a around the room helix. So it's not a actual helix, or the conventional helix, I should say, but it's going to be great. But thanks again, guys, for watching. Hopefully I helped some of you guys out with how I lay my track and my road bed. And we'll talk soon. Thanks again.